We always want to get our win today, not tomorrow. We're not patient. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us patience. Because in patience, the reward is much better, much more than what we can comprehend, than what we would have given ourselves. So that same person who was fighting you the day before, you are telling them, I am giving you food, I'm feeding you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm seeking His reward, even though you were fighting me yesterday, even though you might have killed my family yesterday, I am going and giving you for the sake of Allah. How can a person who is a prisoner of war be treated in such a manner? You want to tell me human rights? This is beyond human rights. This is a true Muslim. This is how a Muslim should behave. Even in time of war, that does not give us the right to take revenge. We have to be of the best character. Why? Because you're seeking the reward in the day of judgment. You're seeking that peace that we want in the hereafter, specifically in that day. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We are giving you, we're feeding you for the sake of Allah. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was known that he said that from addat al-ju', the bite of that hunger that they would go through, he would take a stone, stick it to his stomach, and then wrap something around it out of the pain of hunger that they had. You know, when somebody has some stomach pain, sometimes you just try to crunch a little bit because you feel like you will relieve that pain. That's what they do, not because of the pain, because of the pain of hunger. Not enough food. Allah, when we look at these stories, we have nothing to say nowadays. You want water? It's available. 5 minutes trip to the store. You want anything that you can dream of in this dunya is available to us. If it's not online, it's in any of the stores around. And if we cannot find it for whatever reason, we're complaining. Subhanallah, these people did not have the small necessities. And you want to think about how the food is prepared today, with all the spices and all the salt and whatnot. You think that's how they used to live? They didn't have half of the stuff we have today. Yet their focus was not in what they eat and how well it's prepared. It is more in what they are preparing for themselves. This dunya, brothers and sisters, is very deceiving. We all fall in this trap. But I want to remind myself before I remind you. We are in a bridge. How can we build our foundation in a bridge? That bridge can fall. This dunya is a bridge. But what is in the hereafter, after the bridge, is what's everlasting. We need to make sure that we're building a good foundation, a good house, where it is going to be everlasting. And this is an example of that. So, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. When we are giving you, whether you are the miskin or the yatim or even the prisoner of war, we're giving you for the sake of Allah. We're depriving our own kids, our own families to feed you. Why? Because we're seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. And then on top of that, لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We don't want you to tell me thank you. Or I'm not expecting anything from you. How many times we fall into the trap of, well, I gave this person and he didn't even bother to say thank you. Well, he shouldn't. You should not expect that from him. As a matter of fact, if they were to say it, you should tell them not to say it. Why? Because maybe out of precaution, you don't want your ajr to be lowered or nullified. But we care about the perception of what people want to say about us and how they perceive us. Instead, subhanAllah, when you look at the stories of the Sahaba and the stories of the companions and the people that are after them, they constantly seek to make sure that action can be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they don't want anything to come and disturb it, no matter what that is. إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. We are in fear. We fear that day, the frowning day I mean, do we ever hear, oh, this is a laughing day or a smiling day? We don't describe a day to be frowning or to be a happy day or a laughing day. It's generally, it's an indication of the state of those people at that time. So many frowning faces, so many scared faces, that it is reflective of that day. عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا. You know, when somebody going through some difficult thing that's happening in a day, whether it's a surgery or an exam, you feel that the day is so long in anticipation for that moment, right? Well, the same thing for that day. People are anticipating the judgment, and they're seeing things that they have never saw before, and they have been reminded of it, but now they're in it. They're waiting for that moment to happen. And they are so scared. They're scared of the moment. The sun is so low. The sun is close. People are drowning in their sweat of all the things that they've acquired in this dunya, all the deeds that they have done in this dunya, the good and the bad and the ugly. And now they're seeing it in front of them. And every person is looking at themselves. Nafsi, nafsi. That day cannot be long, cannot be short. It's so long and so difficult. Abusan qamtarira. You know, there was a hadith that was narrated in the Tabarani. He said, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم لو أن رجلا يجر على وجهه من يوم ولد إلى يوم يموت هرما في مرضات الله لحقره يوم القيامة. He is given, Allah, the Prophet ﷺ is giving us an example of a man when he is being pulled from his legs. Basically, his face down, and he's getting pulled. Generally, we always want to protect our face, even from the sun. If you're under the sun, you want to put something on your face so that you don't get burned. But this man, from the day he was born, he's getting pulled around, face down and on his face, from his childhood all the way until he ages. He doesn't die in the process until he ages. إِلَىٰ أَنْ يَهْرِمْ وَيَمُوتْ. And then he dies. And then he does all of that for nothing else other than the sake of Allah. Just imagine. Imagine, we're not talking about a day, 2 days, 60, 70 years. And all he's doing is getting pulled around, and he's doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That man, in the day of judgment, he will look at that deed that he did for the sake of Allah, and he will belittle it in front of what he sees in front of him. I want you to imagine, how many times do we spend, how much time in a day, or in a week, or a month that we spend purely for the sake of Allah? How much of our intention, even in the things that we do for the sake of Allah, is truly for the sake of Allah? Does not have any riya, does not have any boastfulness, any showing off, none of it. Well, this man spent his entire life, 60 or 70 years, and then when he comes in front of Allah in that day, he looks at it as if it's nothing. And we all know the hadith that was narrated in Sahihain that talks about that day where all of the humanity, from the day they were born, from the day they came to earth, all the way to the end of this earth. Millions and millions and millions of people. They come and they're all put in one place. And they are afraid because they see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been angered in a manner that he was never angered with before. And they would go to Adam alayhi salam. And they would ask him to intercede. Why? Not to forgive everybody, just to start the judgment. I want you to think about this for a second. It's one thing to say, I want to be forgiven, because at least you know the outcome is something positive. But here, all they want is just so that he can start. They cannot bear standing anymore in that scene. They just want to get started. Whatever my outcome is, just get it done. Not knowing that the outcome could be pretty bad, worse than what we've seen. They would go to Adam alayhi salam, and Adam alayhi salam would say, you know what? No, I am not for it. Why? Not because he was transgressing all of his life. No, because he remembers one thing he did that he was forgiven for. And that's huge. He was forgiven for his sin. Then they would go to Nuh alayhi salam, and Nuh would say, well, I am not for it. A man that has lived his life seeking nothing else other than having to call his people to follow the path of Allah. 950 years, brothers and sisters, 950 years, all for the sake of Allah, all for da'wah. How many times do we do da'wah? Not even, if we accumulate over our life, it's not enough. This man was harmed by his people, ridiculed by his people, beaten by his people. He never gave up until a certain point. And what did he do? And this is what he thinks is a problem. He made dua against his people. رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ دَيَّارًا. Oh Allah, do not leave any of the non-believers on this earth. And his dua was accepted. And they were all destroyed. And he says, this is not for me. I'm not the right person for it. Then Musa alayhi salam and Ibrahim alayhi salam, and each one of them, you can see through their stories, whatever they claim to have done. Ibrahim alayhi salam claims to have lied 3 times. But none of those are technically lies. It's just a perception that people have from what he said. He said, go ask the greater of all your gods. He is the one who did it. But he was trying to prove a point. He's trying to tell them, use your brain. You cannot follow something that cannot help itself. And then he turns to the sky and he says, cure me, I am sick. All of these things, and he says that I am not for it. Up until we go to the Prophet ﷺ, and he says, Ana laha, I am the one for it, I'm the one for it. And then that's where the judgment starts. So the moral of the story of this khutbah, brothers and sisters, is we always have to be aware of what is our purpose in this dunya. This is what we have to prepare for. We do not want to be of the ones that look back and say, I wish I had done, I wish I was reminded. The reminder, first of all, starts from within us. We have to be willing to accept criticism. It is okay for me to make a mistake. We all are sinners. We all make mistakes. But if I don't allow for my brothers and sisters to come to me and say, you have done something wrong, and analyze that message to see how I can benefit from it, it could be that they are wrong. You can explain yourself, but you don't necessarily have to explain, but you analyze the message. Benefit from the message. This is something, by the way, that a lot of the successful people, quote unquote, successful people in this dunya, they do. You see people who have made millions. When you sit down with them, they're very humble. That's what we should be as Muslims. They're humble and they're willing to learn from the people that you think you would not give any time to, because they see that there's always places to learn from anybody. This, brothers and sisters, is some character of a Muslim, but we don't exhibit that. We tend to not be sure of ourselves, but we should be. Alhamdulillah, we were blessed to be Muslims. That in itself is enough. Everything else that comes is a plus. I should not be worried about how people are going to tell me, but I should be more worried about how I can better myself. How can I impact others in my community and outside of the community? How do we behave in our job? Do I show a different person than I should be when I am in my job versus when I'm in the family? Well, I'm the same person. Islam is everywhere. Our actions can turn people's hearts positively and also negatively. And we need to be careful to touch people with a positive mindset, so that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open their heart to be saved from that day, and for us to be saved from that day because of that action. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه غفور رحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا اللهم فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا برحمتك شر ما قضيت إنك تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت، تباركت ربنا وتعاليت. اللهم اهدنا واهد بنا، اللهم يا رب أمنا من فزع يوم القيامة يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعلنا من الصالحين، اللهم اجعلنا من التوابين يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وصل اللهم على الخلفاء الراشدين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، ملك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. والضحى والليل إذا سجى، ما ودعك ربك وما قلى، وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى، ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى، ووجدك ضالا فهدى، ووجدك عائلا فأغنى. فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر، وأما السائل فلا تنهر، وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. ربنا الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، ملك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون، ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد، ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم، ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد، لكم دينكم ولي دين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. آمين. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Important announcement. So starting next Jummah, which is going to be May 3rd, there is going to be no Jummah here at LIC Musalla. We're going to have only one Jummah at Best Western Hotel, only one Jummah at 1 p.m. inshallah. To accommodate for summer and to accommodate our capacity, we have decided to move to Best Western. There is going to be only one Jummah at 1 p.m. inshallah. There is going to be no Jummah at LIC at all. So we're going to be sending out more communication via email and WhatsApp. If you have not subscribed, there are QR codes, please scan and join them. We're going to be doing announcements as well, inshallah. Right? Assalamu alaikum. 1 p.m. Only one Jummah, 1 p.m. at Best Western Hotel. No Jummah at LIC. And there is a fiqh class tomorrow, 1:45 right after Zohar, inshallah, Saturday.